for joining us today. Welcome to the second episode of the AVENUE Masterclasses, our monthly live stream for students, young creatives, industry experts, and educators dedicated to demystifying virtual production. I'm your host, Tori, and we have a super fun session planned for you today. But before we get started, I want to let you know that if at any point during the live stream you have any questions, please don't be afraid to pop them in the comments down below and we'll make sure that they get answered. And now, without further delay, I want to introduce today's guest, tuning in live all the way from Vancouver, Canada. It's the wonderful, talented, and award-winning Dr. Carlos Vilchis.
Okay, I'm ready. Hello, everyone. Hope you're great. Good morning in America, good afternoon, and good night in Europe and some parts of the world. Thanks for the invitation to the Avenue project. I will say this is one of the most interesting, and I feel very honored to be part of this a specific format that the guys from Avenue Project are trying to improve and promote for the industry. I will say this is one of the most interesting ways to help people to learn a lot about virtual production and different technologies. So for today, I will talk about different things that I'm pretty sure will be very, very interesting for you. So I will start. Give me a minute. I will share my screen and then we will start. Okay, so there you go. Awesome. So I wanna be here with you. So I will just make the things easier. Awesome. So thanks everybody. My name is Carlos Vilchis. I'm co-founder of Virtual Production Academy, a project that is based on North America in Vancouver, Canada. And my specific background is related to virtual production. I will talk a little in a minute or two. Today we want to talk about tracking pipelines, next generation camera tracking pipelines. The main idea is to understand how inside out and outside in tracking technologies work and talk a little about the future of these technologies, okay? Um, just a little about myself. I'm a virtual production tracking supervisor in some projects. I used to work in Industrial Light and Magic doing virtual production and tracking. I have worked in a few projects around the world using this technology, but I'm most interested, or I will say my skills are more related about research. You know, the different research, different projects related to tracking technologies. Obviously, I have a PhD on computer vision. I worked with different companies, helping them to develop the business in Latin America for tracking technologies. Vicon and Size technologies are one of the most important ones in this industry because obviously one of them is outside in and the other one is an inside out. I will talk about in a few minutes. If you are new If this is the first time you are learning about tracking technologies in a deep perspective, you will learn a lot today. If this is the second or the third time you heard about these technologies, or maybe you have been working with tracking technologies at your stage, I hope you can learn more and understand and obviously improve your knowledge with the different technologies and the different scopes. Okay. I'm an educator for sure. I work as an educator in the University of Fraser Valley in Canada in the School of Creative Arts, basically. And obviously, teaching is one of my biggest passions. So obviously, I hope to help you to learn a little today. Um, yeah, so as I mentioned a minute ago, I will talk about the different scopes of tracking technology. We will talk about the evolution of tracking in virtual production, and we will understand the main streams. You know, in the top we have a tracking technology by size. This is a inside out. Why inside out? Because everything is mounted on the camera. As you can see, this camera, this Venice, has a SAIS scenario system in the top. And in the bottom, we have just right behind me tracking technology by icon. You know, the difference is there's no extra hardware for the tracking on the camera, but there's a lot of hardware on this camera. You can see a lot of stuff on this camera, but basically there is a few small, not antennas, basically these are the markers, you know. So these markers are tracked by the outside in system. Okay, so these are the two main streams that tracking technologies have. It doesn't matter the brand, doesn't matter the company, basically just about the different scopes. We will talk a little more about in a few more slides, but that's it. Before to continue, I would love to invite you guys because this is part of the invitation that Avenue and basically the guys from Breda, you know, initially they told me it would be nice if you can talk about the Latin Summit, and I said yes, sure, but I would love to share something related about technology to improve the way that people learn about these things. So the Virtual Production Summit, it's one summit. This specific summit is the third edition we had in Latin America. It will be this week, actually. So this week we will have this event in Latin America for the third time. This is the biggest event in all Latin America. And basically, our event is a specific trade show that improves the way that this technology is used in Latin America, basically because some reasons. And I will say this is the important thing for all the attendees to this conference. There is a big industry in Latin America. Everything is happening in Latin America. We have a big committee of experts, you know, some people that work in different projects for Netflix, for Amazon, for Disney. Everybody is trying to push Latin America to become one of the most attractive ways to do virtual production because there is a very interesting factor for you guys. To produce in Latin America sometimes is less than half or maybe a quarter of the price to produce in North America or to produce in Europe. Okay. The interesting thing, and you know, virtual production doesn't mean that you need to be sticked on a specific place. So if you want to shoot a movie happening in Antarctica, but you shoot it on Buenos Aires or in Chile, doesn't matter. Virtual production will help you to do that. So that's why we have a lot of professionals. We have a big industry that has been growing up and growing up through the past years. So basically the industry right now is welcoming a lot of companies around the world who wants to learn how to, not learn, you know, to improve the networking and to produce in a region that has a lot of opportunities, very attractive rate of the investment, tax rebates, and a lot of professional, very professional people is there. So I will say if you want to follow the streaming, just enter to vpsummit.la and you will have the chance if you want to follow the streaming. We have a virtual ticket. I know that not everybody is able to travel to Chile 4 days before the event, but for sure you can follow the streaming. We will have a lot of talks. We will have a lot of different speakers from all around the world. So I will say the amazing people is coming here to talk about the virtual production, but the most interesting thing is this region. It's growing up so fast, becoming one of the most important regions on the world to do virtual production. Okay, awesome. So let's continue with the presentation. So for today, the main thing, and I wanna help you to understand the basic stage components. Okay, why? Because maybe some of you are new in this industry, maybe some of you understand virtual production. That's amazing, but I will say it's very important to go deep with the specific areas that virtual production, and most important, the stage components or the stage technologies have. Okay, for that I will switch for my iPad, so I want to show you quickly like a whiteboard. So I will switch from this to this. There you go. So I have the whiteboard with me. The most important thing, everybody understand that the virtual production stage, yes, we have this huge LED wall. Most of the times it's a curved wall. I'm not here to talk about walls because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of people to talk about this in this amazing webinar series. I'm here to talk about the tracking technology, but tracking technology lives inside this world. Okay, so to understand that, we need to talk about state edge, you know? So state edge is everything that happens here, let's say inside the volume, but everything that is related to technology and is not production assets. I'm talking about virtual production assets. So to make the things easier for you, I will zoom in here and then I will talk about a couple of components. The first one, we know there is a lens. So you can imagine this like a lens. Okay, and obviously we have a camera. And the camera has position, translation, and rotation. Okay, so let's make the thing super easy to understand. So we know that there is different components, Z, X, and Y. So the camera has rotation, translation, and these different components help us to understand where the camera is. Okay, there is a couple of things happening here in the lens, you know, because some lenses have focus, iris, and zoom. Okay, the famous FIS, focus, iris, and zoom, you know, so focus, iris, zoom. And the camera has different components as well, not just translations and rotation. The camera has obviously the control of the shutter speed, and obviously a feed the video. Okay, so as you can see, there are 5 specific components in a virtual production workflow that are specifically coming and going from the camera. Okay, some of these signals come in one direction, some of the signals come just in bidirectional direction. So talking about this is that where the different components needs to gather all these technologies in a specific thing named state edge. Okay, who take care of these specific things? Different systems that I will talk about today. But the most important thing for us today will be this one. Why? Because this is the tracking, okay? So if the camera moves up, down, left, right, rotated, pan, tilt, etc., everything is related about the tracking. But the tracking most of the times is connected to these specific things. Why? Because companies have been trying to make the things easier for everybody. So you can imagine in the past we have a different signals and devices. Actually, in the photos I have, and I will show you, we have a lot of cables coming from the camera, from the lens, from the sensor, from the tracking, etc. So to make the things easier, some companies are gathering everything inside something named a hub. Okay, so let's say that this red thing is a hub. So the hub will take care of everything here and stream it directly to the Unreal Engine, to, you know, I will say, I don't know, we have Axisymmetry, we have these guys, we have Nuke Stage, we have Assimilate, etc. You know, any software or any any specific control technology based on your brain bar, on your on real operations, will take care of these signals in some way, but we need to take care of everything in a single pack, or at least in a minimal as possible different devices and computer from the stage to the brain bar. Okay, so if you understand this, I will say, okay, we are in a direction of something. Why? Because the focus, iris and zoom are managed by something named the encoders, the shutter speed, the video signals, and the time codes are managed by the genlock and the time code. Obviously, the video is fed by any AV system, and the tracking will be managed by the tracking system. Actually, I was correct with this name. So these four things, these specific four things, is the most important components or products coming from the state technology. Okay, I will stop this part of the broadcast. I will return to my presentation, and based on that specific concepts, we will go to the next slide. Okay, so give me a minute. I will return to the corner. Awesome. So there you go. So I have a specific diagram for this to make the things easier for everybody, because I know that all the technologies, all the different components make the things a little difficult. So let me show you with a little more detail this diagram. So this diagram is completely free to download. I will share with you through the chat the link to download this specific diagram. Is a completely free diagram. The most interesting thing about this diagram is that it solves almost any component in the industry. And I designed this diagram with some help from Alex Soto, one of the most amazing state edge that I have worked with here in Canada. So Alec and I worked trying to gather all the technologies in a single diagram. So as you can see here is the outside-in technologies. There are just three in the industry: Vicon, OptiTrack, and S-Type with the follower solution. You can see here different companies that manufacture different crowns. We have OptiTrack, ILM Technoprobs, and Traxis. In the bottom, we have all the technology related to inside out. So this means that this technology lives in the camera and is tracked from an external device. We have S-Type, we have Moses, we have TrackMan, we have Size, we have NCAM. Actually, NCAMs become Size in some moments. So you can see here how NCAM becomes Size in some moment. We have Vanishing Point, and we have Retracker. Okay, a lot of names. If this is the first time you are talking or hearing about different tracking technologies, don't worry. This diagram, this specific diagram, will be for you. So I will share with you a PDF in super high resolution, so you can click on the different links. As you can see, there are a lot of links to the website of these companies, so you can understand. I miss one, VibeMars. Okay, don't worry, I will go an anti-latency. So there is a big industry related to inside out, and there is a small industry related to outside in. The next step, if you remember, I was talking about how the lenses are talking with the software. So we have the encoding solution. So the encoding solution, we have companies like DCS, LOLED, ARRI, Tilta, Size, that is one of the few companies that have their own encoder connected directly to their tracking, the inside out solution. Vanishing Point is similar to Size, and VibeMars, that they have the Fish Track. Okay, there are external companies like Cmotion, Teradek, and Preston that offer a similar solution, but as you can see, they are not connected to any tracking solution because they are external devices. And finally, we have the hubs. So the hubs are the way that we gather all the signals in a single solution, and this it's delivered directly to the Unreal Engine solution, right? So We have Traxis, DCS, CC Track, Recoup, and finally the Unreal-based tools. I was talking a minute ago about Assimilate, Zero Density, Disguise, Asymmetry, and some plugins like Glassbox, BT Toolkit, Cinelink, etc. So the industry it's very wealthy talking about different technologies and integrators. So don't try to remember what I'm trying to show you. Try just to remember that if you need extra information, you will have this diagram anytime available to download from our website, or just contact me directly through LinkedIn, or maybe we can upload in some area in the Avenue project, so it will be free for you to get it. So this is the map of all the technologies, right? Let's return to the presentation and continue with the next part. So uh, let's try to tear down, let's try to brief any specific, all the different pieces inside this diagram. So let's talk first about the camera. Okay, so the camera will work always like the nucleus of all the technology, and obviously there is a big relationship between the tracking and the pipeline. Okay, so there are a lot of cameras in this industry. In the last couple of years, the cameras become more and more popular. You know, I'm talking about cameras specifically designed to be used in virtual production, because 5, 6 years ago was very difficult to find the right one, you know, just a few ones. But right now I will say we have a lot of options. As you can see, the cameras in my presentation, all of them has these small white markers, you know, because most of the times I used to work with optical cameras, you know, outside in tracking systems. So there are a lot of different solutions. There are a lot of options in this industry, small, big, etc. As you can see, the camera here at my right, it's a camera that has an inside out, a Vive Mars system, right? Because there's no small white balls. This is the first way to identify which specific technology the camera has. So if in some moment you are visiting some stage and you see the camera and the camera has these white markers on the top, this is an outside in system. Okay, it's an outside in system. It doesn't matter if the markers are super nice and beautiful white markers, or just fixed small markers, you know, like this one. They will do the work. Okay, this is an outside in system. Okay, so a tracking solution lives in the middle of this ecosystem, and this is very important. Why? I have seen a lot of people that think that to install a tracking system is just about to place it on the camera and that's it. But it is not, okay? There are a lot of technologies happening there. And this is important because if you need to decide which tracking technology you want to have in your production, you need to be aware which camera are you using and which technologies will be there. So this means that the tracking technology and the people that is taking care of the virtual production need to have a very serious and long talk with the camera operators, with the DOPs about, I want to use this. Are you agree with this? Why? Because if not, we want to have a lot of issues. And this is a real thing. I want to make the things very clear for you if you're trying to decide the best tracking solution for your stage or your production. It's not just about if it's the best, if it's the cheapest, if it's the right. You need to find the right one. The right one for the production is not the cheapest or the more expensive. Is the one that matches with the interest and the needs of your DOP and the camera operators. Okay, so as you can see, there are rangefinders, we have the optics, we have the encoders, we have a hub, we have a handle. So this means that if you want to place a tracking device over this specific area, you will have to take care of a lot of specific details, because the size or the footprint of the technology, it's a big issue in virtual production. Okay, so the first thing is consider the size. Why? Because professional cameras are designed to fit in a specific ecosystem. And this is because this industry has been working with these cameras years, not years, maybe decades, okay? Tracking technologies are the new guys in big productions. Why? Because obviously for the filmmaking or for TVs, there are different considerations that I will explain in a minute or two, but the tracking system needs to be the smallest as possible to fit in just the handle of the camera, or You need to avoid to have a very bulky or difficult to move setup. As you can see in the photo at your top at your right, to move the camera is important. Why? Because in film production, camera will be just moving, coming from a actual stage production or outdoor production. So this means that the tracking system needs to be easy to manipulate or maybe invisible for them. If the tracking system needs to be relocated, I'm pretty sure you know, if you have worked with tracking systems, you need to recalibrate. You need to reset all the technology, okay? So this means try to be discreet, try to choose a tracking system that fits your needs, try to have something that people who manipulate the camera understand that they can't move, touch, or make the things more difficult for you. So this is very important. Why? Because camera operator doesn't have any experience on tracking technology because it's not their work. But this means that they need to be careful. They need to be very, very accurate to the way that they manipulate the camera. But as you can see, the camera is not a small thing. The camera is not easy to move hardware. So I will say both camera operators and tracking operators needs to agree. A middle point is like, okay, I will manipulate the camera, and if you need to recalibrate the system just because I need to move it, both of us will be share the cost of this specific manipulation. Okay. The camera lives, the camera, sorry, the tracking system lives with another technologies, right? Why? Because there's a lot of things happening on the camera, okay? We will have different wireless video transmission, time generator, audio receiver, focus monitor, energy system, viewfinder, storage, and obviously the motion capture technology and the optics. So as you can see, these different bullets I have in this slide means that there is somebody here that will take care of something. So as you can see, we have at least 4, 5, 6, 7 people taking care of different devices on the camera. So that's why we have camera operators. That's why we have a very specific a structure of people that have access to touch the camera, and this is important because the tracking system is part of this structure. So that means that if you want to place a tracking system of the camera, you need to have a very good communication with the camera operators and a good setup that doesn't need you to touch, move, manipulate the camera all the time, because if not, you will be part of the problem and not part of the solution. Okay. As you can imagine, I have this very weird diagram I designed so people understand. If you want to touch the tracking technology, the most important is that you will have to talk this way. As you can see, we have the people with motion capture or tracking experience in the bottom, and we have the people with the with no mockup experience, but they take care of the camera. Basically, if you want to ask somebody, I want to change something on the camera, I want to recalibrate the camera, you will have to talk with these people because they are the actual owners of the camera, okay? So this is very important, guys, because before to talk about the right motion capture technology, you need to talk about the circumstances and the rights that you have in the production to manipulate your camera, and if they will allow you to do it or not. I just returned a couple of weeks ago from a production in Spain that we have similar condition. The DOP is it wasn't aware of the tracking technology, so he was like, I don't care, I don't want to somebody touch my camera, so it's up to you guys. If you play something in the camera, means that you won't touch my camera again for the rest of the day. So what happens if the system needs to be recalibrated? Basically, we lost the control of the tracking, okay? And this is a big, big issue. I know you are aware of the people who have experience in virtual production and operates the brain bar. You know that if you lost the camera tracking, basically the production is lost. Why? Because the frustum needs to be moved, because the frustum needs to be there. So if you don't have frustum, basically you don't have virtual production, ICVFX. You don't have ICVFX, okay? Important. Always, always, always take care of this. I wanted to be pushy with this specific part because the last couple of years I have seen people just, saying, this is something that we will solve in some moment. No. The first moment that you have a call because you are invited to be part of the tracking team, or maybe that you're going to invest in a tracking solution, I will say, don't marry with a specific technology. Why? Because all the technologies that have their own advantages and disadvantages. I will say always consider hybrid tracking, and that's why I'm here. because I want to break this idea that it's white or black. If I have inside out, I don't need an outside in. If I have an outside in, I don't need an inside out. And it's not. You need both. Both of them are the complete spectrum of the solutions. I will talk about in a minute more. So we know that we have the optics, the encoders. So everything that is happening in the lenses come directly from these specific devices that help us to integrate the profile of the how the focal distance, how the aperture, and in some cases the zoom of the lenses, if you are using a zoom lens, will talk with our actual technology. So it's part of the solution, yes. Is is this integrated to the tracking solution? Sometimes no. Let's say, as I showed you, size includes this information because actually, size is an optics company, so they have a good solution to talk between the lenses and the tracking technology all the time. But some companies like Vicon doesn't do that, or like OptiTrack, they doesn't do that. Why? Because they don't have any control of the lenses. So basically you are by your own using the optical data and the tracking data. Okay, this is important because as I mentioned before, some tracking technologies solve some of the things and some other no. Okay. The tracking system, as you can imagine, is basically to locate the camera, to stream the position, the rotation, and the movements of the camera. So we have a lot of different technologies, and we have absolute and we have relative. Absolute means that the tracking system is the complete solution in the building, in the actual stage, like an outside in. And the relative tracking means that I can take my camera with this tracking technology and inside out and move it to the outdoor and use it in the outdoor. So basically I'm relocating the position of the tracking every time I move the camera to a new positions. You can do that with inside out. You cannot do that with outside ins, okay? Absolute and relative tracking is important also because if you want to choose a good tracking technology for your school, for your stage, you want to have something that adapts to the different scenarios and not just a single scenario, okay? The Genlock is one of the most underrated things and actually the most important one because the Genlock will be the only device to sync the rhythm and the way that the camera, the shutter speed, the position of the tracking, and the LED wall works. So please always be aware that the Genlock will be there and will help you to prevent the tearing or judder of the camera in some moments. Most of the times it's one of the first issues to diagnose if the tracking is shaky or is shuddering in some moment. It's basically to check, okay, are we syncing the tracking with the Genlock or not? Okay. Then, this is the right moment that I want to talk about the differences between both technologies, okay? So, both technologies adapt to two different scenarios. The first scenario is TV, okay? TV tracking is not pushed to more than a few camera positions. As you know, when you are tracking for a TV show, basically TV shows have always the same conditions. Let's say this is a TV show that happens every day, like a news TV show, or maybe you have a TV show happening every weekend, like the soccer games or sports games. So this means that the specific format, positions, and people will be there most of the times exactly the same position, right? So this means that the cameras are not occluded by photographic hardware. You know why? Because the lights are set since the beginning of the construction of the set and will be exactly the same or will be most of the times the same through the years, you know? There are TV shows that maybe they doesn't change the actual setup in a couple of years. So that means that the 3D tracking will be fine. Why? Because nothing is changing. Basically, it's exactly the same. So we don't have a lot of people. As you can see, we have some cranes, we have the crew, and we have obviously the talent, but it's not like we have a lot of people moving inside the stage like in a film production. So this is very important. If you want to produce TV content, very common in the companies, not at universities, maybe you need a TV tracking that most of the times is an inside out. Why? Because inside out sticks to very few things in the ceiling, so the ceiling will be very easy to track. Okay, so first rule and the first thing to consider is am I tracking for a TV or for film. If you are tracking for film, the things are getting more difficult. Okay, why? Because film camera tracking push the camera to a lot of positions. You know, you are shooting a couple of days with a car, then 3 days with a different stage, then you change the stage and set the different construction. So you are changing every 3 days. You have a different way to work. Okay, so this is important. Wait a second, I don't know why my camera is not happy. Let me just ask my camera to return to the real position. There you go. Okay, so uh, so in film tracking, we'll have a lot of people. You know, we have the crew, we have the people that works with the cable, the electricians, the DOP with their people, the lighting, everything is changing, enters out. So we have a lot of people coming and going here. So this is important because a lot of people makes the things more difficult for tracking technologies. Okay, why? Because we have a lot of occlusion, we have a lot of movement happening here. So some setups, some tracking technologies are not happy with film tracking. Why? Because they are pushed to the limits and they break in some moment, right? So this is very important, because as you can see, the lighting setup in a film production is way different to the light setup in a TV production. Why is important the lighting? Because the light makes the things difficult for infrared technologies like Bicon, like size. So this is very important to consider, okay? And if DOP wants to work with different hardware or different lighting, like flags, like, you know, all the stuff that you can see at your bottom, at your left, will make the tracking impossible, okay? This is very important, because as I mentioned before, if you have a call and you're trying to consider which specific tracking technology are you using for a production, let's ask the DOP the way that he should in production. If he likes to use big flags, if he likes to do a very accurate photographic control, will be difficult to use an outside in. I want to be honest. But if he's open to change, he's open to move the things, that is not very common, but obviously if he's open to do that, maybe you can consider an outside in. Why? Because you will have control of as much cameras as you need. I will talk about the advantages of outside in a minute or two, but this is very important, okay? So as you can see, the key difference for to understand the difference between TV tracking and movie and film tracking will be based on specifically the film tracking is looking for film quality, photographic, and light control, and the TV is not always pushy about that. That means that before to do a shooting, you need to prepare a lot for the circumstances of the shooting. This image I'm showing you is just a week before a shooting. We had a lot of different construction happening in this stage. This is a virtual production stage, but as you can see, I had a lot of information, so I can decide where I'm gonna have my tracking system, because I will have a bicycle, I will have a bus, I will have a swimming pool, I will have different lighting artifacts, like the crane, etc. So this is important because it's the only way that you can be prepared for the tracking. And I would recommend you all the time to have this information at least a couple of days before. Based on that is that you decide finally what I want. Do I need an outside in or I need an inside out? Okay. Outside in, as you can imagine, and I will be a little more technical here, is the way that infrared cameras are located around the movie camera, and they are just checking the position of the camera with the white small markers, okay? So these white small markers are very lightweight, so you don't need to add extra weight to the camera, but they are very small, considering that if you want to do optical tracking, maybe you want to have a very good setup, because these small white markers will make the things very difficult for you. I will move my video to the other side. Wait, there you go. So outside in, sorry, inside out. In inside out, you have a camera over your camera that tracks the environment. Is looking for different contrasting points around the stage, like reflective markers or like just natural markers, to attach to these specific environments to make the things easier easier for you. But if these things are moving, let's say that if people is moving the different hardware around the camera, the tracking is not reliable, right? Because it's trying to attach to the to the actual environment, but if the environment is moving, you don't want to have that. Okay, so that's one of the first reasons that maybe you want to have an outside in. Why? Because the outside in doesn't move. This outside in lives in the structure of the building, and the inside out lives in the camera that is moving. Okay, so there are a couple of things to consider first. Let's go a little more deeper. So Inside Out, Inside Out used to track based on a constellation. This is the right name for these white reflective markers on the top, on the ceiling of the stage. So this means that the Inside Out technology will try to see, understand what is happening on the ceiling, and will try to use that to triangulate the position of the camera. So if the camera is moving, they use trigonometry to understand how much, in which direction, which rotation, etc. So basically, it sounds easy, it's not, but at least we understand what is happening here, right? And it's very important to understand what is happening here, but because will be the only way to diagnose if you have some issues. Okay, disadvantages of Inside Out is that if you want to track 2, 3, or 4 cameras, you will have to invest 3, 4, or 5 times more expensive or more budget. Why? Because you need a specific hardware for each camera. Okay, so 5 times expensive. If you wanna track, if you are using a ceiling, let's say that you have a ceiling, a virtual production ceiling, I mean, a LED wall in the top of the stage, means that you can't track using reflective markers. Why? Because you don't have a way to glue these reflective stickers to the ceiling. Maybe you can use a different way, like size systems do. Size systems have a natural markers tracking, means that will track using different things that reflective markers. It can track the ceiling, the corners of the LED wall. Actually, if the LED wall has some content and the content is not moving, it can track based on the content of the ceiling. So this is one of the most interesting advantages at what I consider size scenarios the best inside out system in the industry, because you can take a size scenario and use it outdoors. You can track to do not just simulcam or post vis. So if you want to shoot in the forest and you want to track using size, you can do it. You don't need to worry about the conditions of the forest. Maybe if the trees are moving because the wind will be difficult for the system, but if nothing is moving, I will say the size scenario can stick to anything, not just reflecting markers, anything. And this is very important, because if in the future you are considering the option to get a tracking system to teach that helps you to improve a traditional VFX workflow, I mean, you will do traditional post-production, this system helps you a lot. Why? Because includes the distortion of the lenses, because has the encoder. So it's like a how do you say this? One-stop shop, one shop stop, because it has everything. It has encoding, it has distortion of the lenses, it tracks outdoor, indoor. You can be used for virtual production, it can be used in a traditional VFX production. So yeah, very good hardware, I will say. There are other companies like Moses, like Redspi, like different companies that have different things. So the way that you will recognize an Inside Out is because they have something very bulky, heavy on the camera. Okay, and this is the disadvantage of this technology. Why? Because you need a cost, and the cost is to place something on the camera that won't be the most interesting thing for the DOP, because DOPs doesn't like to have extra hardware on cameras unless they are aware of this specific technology. But basically, as I said, there is a cost, and it's the cost of the hardware, and the cost that you can track just one camera at a time, and the cost that you need to have a very good operator next to them, because it's difficult to manipulate, because there is a lot of technical hardware happening here. Okay, so a camera operator doesn't know anything about how the tracking system works. Okay, so advantages and disadvantages. There is another tracking technologies like the RGBD tracking. So RGBD tracking is an extra different hardware layer for some technologies like size that helped the tracking technology to use not just the infrared markers, it used the depth. RGBD means red, green, and blue, and depth. Okay, so it helps us to understand the depth. Not all the tracking technologies have RGBD. The most commoner ones are the ones that use and you will recognize it because there is like a sensor on the top of the camera that looks like a Kinect. If you are old enough to remember a Kinect, you will recognize this word. But basically, there are a few ones in the industry like Pixotype, or the people that use the Intel RealSense, that is a very common hardware that can be placed over the camera. This makes the things easier for inside out because it's portable, you can do fast setup, and it's good for outdoors. Okay, but the disadvantages obviously is the drift, because the origin of the actual virtual environment is not super accurate, and it's sensitive to some lights, like infrared lights. So if the production is using infrared lights that use tungsten lights, these specific tracking technologies will be struggling to work. There is another technology. There is another technology for tracking. The name is the computer vision tracking. So the computer vision tracking is the new guy on the street. They are a group of cameras, 5 or 6 cameras. They use AI tracking using neural networks. This is a new way to track. It's very, very new, but I will say it's the future of the tracking. Why? Because they use trained models and they are running on GPU onboard devices. So it's not a simple computer. It's a computer using NVIDIA chips and real-time processing of neural networks. At this moment, just Sony Oculus have this specific technology. They are very new. They have a very nice product out there. If you want to understand how it works, I will make a very, very easy analogy. You have seen Tesla cars. Tesla cars have 6, 7 cameras. Tesla cars can be driven by itself because they are aware of the environment. They recognize dogs, people, motorbikes, trucks, etc. So the car is not being tracked just with a dumb tracking. The car is deciding based on the recognition of the different things. So this is computer vision tracking because the eyes recognize things. So the future of the tracking means that we will have systems like this on our cameras, in our movie cameras, that recognize this is a people, this is a light, this is the stage, this is the floor. So I will track the floor, not the people. I will skip to track this object because it's moving, so it's not reliable anymore. So basically, you can imagine the future of the tracking is about this technology and the hybrid workflows. And finally, I will talk about these different devices, infrared tracking or multi-camera tracking, because we have a lot of cameras in the ceiling, as you can see here. A lot of cameras in the ceiling. This is the infrared cameras outside in technology. They help a lot to track our complex situation. Is the most flexible? Yes, because you have a lot of cameras. It gives high precision, low latency, and is stable. But there are very, very interesting disadvantages because it's heavy infrastructure. You need to be aware of 40, 50, 60, 70 cameras. Big stages have up to 90 cameras at the same time. So you can imagine 90 different hardwares managed by by Ethernet infrastructure. It's a lot of hardware that makes the things very expensive for sure. And it is very difficult to calibrate because you need to spend a lot of time to make the things go smooth. Advantages of this technology is you can track 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cameras if you want. There's no issues related to that. And advantages of this technology is you can track people, as you can imagine. Outside has its advantages because it's the most popular with big stages, because they allow people to develop specific technologies around this. They are more open to development. You can track custom hardware like the tracking cube at your left. You can track several cameras, 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, doesn't matter. There's no extra licenses if you want to track as much cameras as you need. And if you want to move the tracking hardware from one camera to another, you can do it fast. Why? Because it's just this crown. It's just small LED lights in the top of the camera that you need to move from one camera to another. That's not easy with that inside out, because an inside out needs to recalibrate. You need to move a lot of hardware to make the things easier to move from one camera to the another camera. And finally, as you can imagine, you can track people. So I will say is the most important and the biggest strength of this technology, as they track anything, not just camera, but characters, people, cows, cars, anything. Okay, it's to track anything. So, what makes a good camera tracking solution in filmmaking? At least in filmmaking, we'll talk about it needs to be immune to special effects. Why? Because we have a lot of people doing stuff inside the stage. They use fire, water, they use stuff. You know, you need to be immune. So if a good tracking solution is immune to that, because if not, basically you lost the tracking in the middle of the production. It needs to be immune to reflections. Why? Because sometimes they construct different surfaces, shiny surfaces, etc. So it needs to be immune to reflection. It needs to be adapting to the construction elements, because we know that people will be placing hardware, not just hardware, construction sets, different stuff will be there. So if somebody moves something and the tracking is lost, it's not a good tracking. Okay, redundancy means that if in middle of the shooting the tracking dies, how can you just keep tracking? You know, you need to have redundancy. You need to have something to make you to walk forward. The outside in systems are good in redundancy because you have 90 cameras. So basically you can block half of the cameras and you will keep tracking. But with an inside out, it's not, because if the main core tracking system fails, you don't have another way to keep tracking. Why? Because there are just a single tracking device. So that's a disadvantage, right? Multiple mobile camera tracking is the option. If you have two cameras, you want to work with both cameras at the same time, or at least doesn't spend time just trying to recalibrate a second camera, because time is money, you know, in production. It needs to be easy to remove and install. It needs to be easy to calibrate. As fast as you calibrate a system, as fast as the production is returning to the business, right? And that make difficult or bulky for camera operators. So it's very difficult to have all the checks in a single system. It's impossible. There's no best system. Outside in or inside out, they have their advantages or disadvantages, okay? So the most important thing is to understand which one will make the things easier for me, but it won't be perfect. Perfect means to have both systems and a good schedule, good production schedule to say, okay, next tomorrow we will shoot these specific things and we will use the inside out, but in 2 days we will do this specific shooting and we will use the outside in. So that is the best. The perfect scenario is to have everything covered and be prepared, right? So I have a few examples here. You know, the immune to special effects, as I said, smoke, steam, fire. Fire has a lot of infrared light, so fire is not good for tracking systems, but some people, not some people, some production needs fire. Reflections, you know, anything can be a reflection, even a lake of water or a mirror of water, because you will have reflection of the infrared light, or you will have water that can you know, splash the cameras and make the tracking system to be wet. Needs to be persistent, as I said before. If the ceiling will be a part of the virtual content, you can't track with an inside out because the ceiling is there, but you can track with that outside in. You will have to remove the cameras in post-production. Obviously the cameras are not invisible, but this means that you will have to spend more money in the post-production than in the production. Very important thing. That's why a good virtual production supervisor understands the specific needs in the process before to add the numbers to the spreadsheet. You know why? Because they know the cost of the different decisions. Multiple cameras, as I mentioned before, and adapted to the construction elements means that we want to use a tracking system that helps us to relocate the different objects, you know, the practical sets, and doesn't get mad, you know, because some tracking technology doesn't like when you move the things because they are not able to attach to that specific things, or because you are occluding the tracking. You know, there's a lot of things happening here. Sometimes you want to track in a crane. So I will say this is the most difficult part for any tracking solution. Why? Because to move a camera to almost touch the ceiling means that you want to track something in the top, but not all the tracking technologies are able to track the 100% of the volume. Sometimes we set the technology to track in the floor, so we have a specific height that we cover, maybe 2 meters, 3 meters. But if you want to have the camera 10 meters height, means that you want to track in an area that maybe you use 1% of the production. So this means that you need to recalibrate, relocate the cameras and be ready to shoot this specific shoot maybe 2 days earlier. Okay, it's very important. The way that you schedule the different setups for your tracking solution will be the way that the tracking will be persistent through the days. But I know that the production have a specific calendar that you cannot succeed or match at the same time. So this is one of the biggest problems for virtual production tracking, because it takes time. Okay, it takes and you need people to make the things work. You need to take a crane, you need to move the cameras, you need to get ladders, etc. This is another example where the camera needs to be inside a very, very small practical set. So all the some tracking technology will break, some of the tracking technology it won't. Or when you want to track inside an inside volume, so it means a volume inside a volume. Okay. Another problem is related to audio. Why? Because virtual production stages have acoustic bouncing, echo. So the echo is a problem. Why the echo is important for tracking? Because when people wants to shoot and they don't want to have the echo, they use this. As you can see here at my right, there is like a sound sheet. This sound sheet is like a barrier for the bouncing for the sounds, so the sound waves bounce in some way, so they want to avoid it. But if they avoid it, they are occluding the tracking technology. So if you want to have a good audio quality, you need to sacrifice tracking technology. Again, tracking technology is affected by a lot of environments. As you can see, the complete environment sometimes have a specific solutions. As you can see, there is a tracking tower here in at your left. So the cameras are tracking outside of the volume, because for this specific shoot, the camera was walking from the outside to the inside. So this means that in some moment the camera needs to be tracked outside of the volume, inside of the volume in a single shot. This is a sequence, a full sequence that follows the actor from outside to the inside. Means a very, very accurate and well fine-tuned tracking solution to make the things work. Okay, it's a big challenge. So how the hybrid works, so the hybrid works this way. A hybrid solution means that you will use the tracking technology from an inside out to support the tracking technology from outside in at the same time. Okay, this is a theory. Actually, it's not a complete model. I'm working on this research. Actually, that's part of my work right now. I'm working with Bicon and Size to create a new solution that help us to fuse the tracking from both systems. What does it mean? When the tracking solution is going into a challenging position, it means that the tracking solution will have to shift, to decide, I want to use the inside out, I want to use the outside in. This is something completely new, because as I mentioned before, people think that tracking technologies, it's a decision that is black or white. Or I have an inside out, or I have an outside in. Another thing is that, as you know, outside in systems are expensive. So that means that if you want to have both, will be more expensive, but not. Remember, if you want to use an outside in and an inside out at the same time, means that you will save money with the outside in. You don't need to have 90 cameras. You can have maybe 15 cameras, and you can have an inside out, and you can have the best of both worlds. Why? Because if you remember, the outside in systems doesn't include lens or tracking of the encoders, right? So one of the advantages of some inside in, as they have the control of the lens encoding. So if you want to use a size system, because the advantages of the lens encoding and the inside out and outdoor support, mix it with a Vicon system that gives you the control of a huge absolute position that helps you to track body and people at the same time. So if you use both of them at the same time, you will have the best solution of the environment. Why? Because you will get the best of both worlds. Okay. I'm working to research a specific solution for this, and I will say if somebody is interested to support this research, I'm talking to any other researchers on virtual production. I will say this is one of the most interesting things to push in that direction, because this will be the best of the next 5 to 7 years to make a solution that actually fix all the problems related to one or the another technology. Okay, I'm almost this is just the last slides from my presentation, but the most important thing of the hybrid solution, remember, I'm talking about the hybrid solution. The hybrid solution will help us to drift, to correct their drift. You know, if you remember, inside out systems have drift, they move. The position of the origin is not absolute, it's relative. So if we use the outside in, we will make the things easier to have this absolute position all the time and have the control of the dynamic blending of the different solutions. So if in some moment the camera is working and needs to go on their construction set, and you will lost the outside in, immediately you ask the inside out to take control of the tracking. So the blending needs to be smooth and will be, you know, like a transition from one tracking to another system that needs to be completely seamless and invisible for the camera. And that's possible. Why? Because both streamings are there, right? So both streamings can live in the same position. And this is part of the progress I'm trying to push with my research. And I'm keen to the idea to publish a paper related to this specific solution to the end of the next year. And that's why I'm looking for extra researchers, looking for extra challenge with me. So there's gonna be a lot of benefits for sure, because we will improve the precision, we will make the things more robust. And one of the advantages, to be honest, is that you will save money. Why? Because we know that some outside in technology is very expensive, but we know that some inside out technology it's more affordable. So this means that if you want to solve the issues from the inside out using the inside out, you will save money because you don't need the complete solution. So you need just a hybrid solution. Okay. Um, Basically that's one of the last slides I have for you guys, because obviously I wanted to invite partners. I'm working with Bicon, obviously I'm working with Size. That's one of the most interesting things, that both companies are very interested to the idea to in some moment meet in a point in the future. So they are not competitors, they are complementary technologies, and this is part of what I'm pushing, and I wanted to introduce to you in this specific talk. I'm pretty sure that was a little advanced for some people, but I'm sure that's even for a couple of extra new pieces of knowledge that I share with you, you will improve the way that you work. So I don't know if you have some questions. I will be more than happy to answer any question related to my presentation, and I will share with you the link so you can download my diagram, and please, I don't know if you have some questions, I'm happy to answer. I will give you a few minutes to so you can share your questions in the chat, and Victoria shares with me your questions.
Absolutely.
On the while, I will share the file so you can download this amazing document. Give me a minute. Uh, okay, and where is my file for you guys here?
In the meantime, like Carlos
So
said, if you have any questions, just let
uh,
us know in the comments.
it looks like there's no question, so that's good. I hope it's a good thing. Uh, just give me a minute or two, or maybe I can share with you the. No, it's here. Got it. I got it. So please, if you don't have any questions so far, thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for inviting me. There you go. I share in the chat the link, Victoria. So if you wanna share with them, is this is
Absolutely.
the link to download the diagram. Remember, the diagram will help you to understand everything that I talk about today because I know this industry, it's big. There is a lot of players. I will show you quickly again the diagram. Uh, so this diagram is part of the map of everything I talked before. So if you feel that you have more questions, in the diagram you will find my LinkedIn and my email for sure. And I will be more than happy to help you to solve any questions.
We have
Uh,
one question in the
so yeah,
comments.
thanks so much for your time. If there's an extra questions, my email will be public in the. Actually, I will add it to the actual event. So I will show you here. Uh, I'm there. You go. Now it's in the event in the LinkedIn because I know that you're on LinkedIn, guys. My email is here. Okay, there you go. Oh, sorry, I'm in the middle of the screen. There is a question. Awesome, cool.
Yes.
Yes, please. Which share me the question,
A
and
question
I will
from
be
Graham. How
happy to
does
answer it.
using an outside in tracking system like Vicon for green screen virtual
Where is
production
Zoom?
differ from inside out systems like
Here.
Moses or Stipe? Also, how does Vicon work for AI workflows? Did you get all that? It's a long one. I'll just share it in our comments in our chat.
Okay, the question is how does using an outside-in tracking system like Vicon for green screen virtual production differ from using inside-out system like Moses or S-Type? Also, how does Vicon work for AR workflows? Okay, that's a good question. I will say there's no difference. There's no difference. The green screen production talks about okay, you're in a specific environment that basically you want to I will say this in some way that you want to work in an environment that is easier to control, right? Because you have a green screen, because you will remove the background, because you are setting up the light. So green screen environments, I will say, are the environments that are easier to manage because it's not difficult as an LED wall. LED walls environments, everybody's pushing. Why? Because you want to shoot the real content. You want to use the actual content from the LED wall. So that makes the things a very stressing part, you know. So the tracking, I will say the tracking that you want to use in a LED wall needs to be a tracking that it's ready for any problem related to it. In a green screen environment means that you are working with a post-production environment, or at least you have time to recover whatever that happens because you are keying the green screen in a workflow that is not stressing as the final image. I know that you can use a green screen to produce real-time virtual production. Yes, that's right. But at least I have seen a lot of condition that is like, okay, the tracking broke. Let's just shoot it with the green screen and we can track again in post-production. It's not that you are stressed. Talking about Vicon, I will say yes, Vicon works in green screen environments, but the interesting thing about green screen environments with Vicon is that most of the times the green screen lives in the background, right? So that means that the Vicon cameras need to be like in a horseshoe, because if you place cameras over the green screen, maybe they won't be able to track camera sideways, you know. So this means that sometimes you do like a horseshoe around the green screen. With LED walls, you distribute the Vicon cameras around all the active tracking solutions. So basically, you have a better coverage in a in an ICVFX with an LED wall using an outside in. I will say I consider that this is another of the this is part of the answer. In a green screen environment means that you don't have maybe the budget to track because you don't have budget for LED wall, or maybe you have the budget but you don't want to invest in a LED wall because you work in a green screen workflow. But at least Moses, S-Type, size, all the tracking technology inside out performs better in the budget for green screen than a Vicon one. Because remember, Vicon one means that you will invest in 4 or 5 cameras. No, not 4 or 5, at least 10 or 12 cameras, you know? An extra thing for the equation is the complexity. You know, you need to install cameras, cable the cameras, install the cameras in a green screen. So if this is a temporal setup, you will spend a lot of time. If this is a temporal setup because you rent the stage just for a day, so the camera, the wall, the not the wall, the green screen, the lights will be there just for a shooting day, you will set super fast the inside out compared to the outside in. So as you can see, the answer for me is like if you want to shoot a green screen, I would recommend an inside out. Why? Because most of the times the condition to do green screen are benefit for the inside out compared to the outside in. Okay, that's the answer. Okay, and yes, Vicon does AR workflows. Actually, there is a very nice video. As I wanted to be, clever with the outside in system because outside in system have a lot of advantages, and Vicon has an amazing tracking technology for AR workflows. I don't know if you have seen this video. This will be maybe the last part of the presentation. But in the SIGGRAPH 2025, the people from Vicon had this amazing integration. This is an AR workflow. So as you can see, we have the robot being tracked from the mockup suit, and the camera is tracked at the same time. So basically, when the camera moves, the position of the robot moves as well. Why? Because we are tracking the camera, we are tracking the guy. It's not virtual production, it's AR. So this AR integration with Vicon, it's a very, very cool way to show something that no other tracking solution can do. Why? Because remember, the advantages of Vicon is body tracking and camera tracking at the same time. So as I said, there's no best solution, just the right solution for the right conditions. So this is something that there's no other tracking solution in the world that makes these specific things like Vicon is doing. Why? Because we are mixing body, camera, and AR. So I will say this is a very good questions. Thanks for asking because it gives me the opportunity to share a very, very advanced workflow, to do AR with Vicon. But yeah, sure. Thanks for your question. I don't know if there's no other question. I think that's it. Please be open to ask again any other question in the actual event in LinkedIn because I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of opportunity to comment, to share, and to keep talking about the specific topic I talked today in the LinkedIn event. And I will be there, happy to answer your questions. I'm part of the people that is in following this specific event on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Victoria, for inviting me, and thanks for this a very, very cool project event or webinar, the AVENUE Masterclasses. I think it's one of the most interesting things I have seen. So please follow the event, and yeah, keep me posted if you have questions. Thanks so much for your time, guys. Have a great one.
Thank you, Carlos, for joining our live stream. And I want to also thank the viewers for tuning in and watching. If you ever want to rewatch this episode or share it with your colleagues or peers, you can find the recording on our LinkedIn page. If you want to join one of our AVENUE Masterclasses with a project breakdown, a tech deep dive, or a crazy virtual production innovation, then let us know through our contact form on our website, avenuecov.eu, or send us a message directly on LinkedIn at avenuecov. Also, make sure to follow our LinkedIn page to stay informed about our next master classes. And having said that, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.